What do Bernie Sanders, college debt, and Social Security have in common? Well, they all sound generous until you actually do the math. Well, today we're diving into government economics, where rewarding failure is policy and punishing success is progress. So buckle up, because this ride is part Econ 101, part comedy, and part legally questionable Ponzi scheme.
For far too long, the top 1% of the top 10% of the top 1% of the top 10% of the...
No, you gotta get it wrong.
All right, what is it?
The top 1%.
The top 1%, that's what I said.
The top 10%.
Of the top 10%.
To the top 8%.
Of the top 8%, you're throwing in an 8.
You gotta follow the new statistics.
Welcome back to another edition of 5-Minute Facts. Another basic rule of economics is this: if you want more of something, then you subsidize it. If you want less of something, then you tax it. States have tax-free weekends before going back to school because lower taxes promote higher sales. Some states impose high sin taxes on cigarettes because they want to encourage people to quit smoking. That's why the last few administrations have been offering $7,500 subsidies on electric cars to promote the sale of electric vehicles. Knowing this, why is it that we have decided to subsidize unwed mothers by giving them more money for every child they have outside marriage, yet we want to raise taxes on millionaires and billionaires? Do we really want more unwed mothers and fewer successful businesses? Well, it seems that way. 60 years ago, President Johnson declared war on poverty, and after spending $30 trillion promoting bad behavior like rewarding unwed mothers by giving them more money for every baby they have, the poverty level hasn't changed a bit. Well, what has changed? In 1950, just 9% of black children lived in fatherless homes. But today, 56% of black children live in fatherless homes. Congratulations, LBJ. The law of economics worked once again. If you want more of something, then you subsidize it. If you want less of something, then you tax it. Studies have proven that if a person does 3 things, they will never live in poverty. Number 1, finish high school. Number 2, get a job and keep it. Get a better job when you can, but you always work. Number 3, get married before you have children. Let me also say that not everyone needs to go to college. Some of the most successful businessmen I've ever met went to trade school, started their own businesses, or started working on the loading dock and worked their way up the corporate ladder to become top executives. Most people today go to college simply to party for 4 years and wind up with some useless degree in women's studies and $200,000 in student debt. Now, if you're focused on law school, engineering, medical school, or something similar, then college is essential. However, for many of us, we'd be much better off just going straight to work after we got out of high school, especially with President Trump focusing so much on energy independence and bringing industry back to America. I'm sure by now you've heard the communist Senator Bernie Sanders say, well, if we can only get the billionaires to pay their fair share. Bernie used to rail against millionaires, that is, until he became one, only Bernie never held a real job or ran a business. He became a multimillionaire worth an estimated $15 million by being in Congress. Tell me, how does that work? The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, that 10% of Americans pay 75% of all income taxes. Did you know that? The top 1%, that evil class that Bernie villainizes, pays almost half of all income taxes taken in by the U.S. government. Now, how is that fair? The bottom 50% of taxpayers pay less than 3% of the total income taxes. You're right, Bernie, that's not fair. Fair would be that we all pay the same rate. Not the same amount, but the same percentage. Let's use an example of 10%, a 10% flat tax. If you earned $1,000, you'd pay 10% or $100 to fund the government. If you earned $10,000, then you'd pay $1,000 to fund the government. Now that's fair, like the tithe was in the Bible. No free rides. Everyone pays the same percentage. Everyone has a stake in the decisions made by the government. We are a constitutional republic, not a democracy. That means that we are ruled by law, not a simple majority vote. 90% of the people cannot vote to steal all the money from 10% of the people. That may be democratic, But stealing is illegal under our rule of law, and that 10% or even 1% has unalienable God-given legal rights. Now, here's how taxes are supposed to work in America. The people create the government. They recognize that a certain amount of money is needed to fund whatever responsibilities that they've delegated to the government that they created, so the people agree to contribute a certain amount to fund the government. However, now, instead of us telling the government how much money they can have to do the necessary things, the government tells us how much of our money we get to keep. Folks, it's not their money in the first place. It's our money. But participation is not optional. We don't pay taxes. Taxes are taken out of our paychecks. And no one seems to be accountable for how our money is spent or misspent. That's exactly what happened to Social Security. I'm sure that by now you've heard accusations that the Republicans are trying to take away Social Security. That is not true. In fact, that money is already gone. Let me explain. President Roosevelt established the Social Security Trust Fund almost 100 years ago. The idea was that the government would force people to save for their own retirement. Right now, every person has 7.65% forcibly removed from their paycheck in taxes for Social Security. And on top of that, your employer is forced to match that 7.65%. That money, a total of 15.3% of each week's paycheck, is supposed to be held for us in the Social Security Trust Fund invested by our government until we need it when we retire. However, the government, rather than living within its budget, loves to spend other people's money to buy votes and get reelected. Rather than saving our money for when we retire, politicians have borrowed the money out of the Social Security Trust Fund and filled it full of IOUs placed there by the government. Do you remember this scene from the hilarious movie Dumb and Dumber?
Listen, Mr. Samsonite, about the briefcase. My friend Harry and I have every intention of fully reimbursing you.
Ah, yes, the official government motto.
You open it up. Open it up! Go ahead. Open it up. Do what he says.
Ah, yes, the congressional briefcase.
What is this? What is this? Where's all
Filled
the
with
money?
nothing but hope and paper.
That's as good as money, sir. Those are IOUs.
IOUs,
Go ahead
government's
and add it up.
love language.
Every cent's accounted for. Look. See this? That's a car. 275,000. Might want to hang on to that one.
And now we have a crisis. Instead of being able to draw from our own money that was forcibly taken from us, safely held in trust by the federal government, there is no money. Retirees taking Social Security today are being paid with money that today's workers are paying into the trust fund. That's called a Ponzi scheme, and it's against the law unless you're in the bureaucratic class in Washington. Of course, stealing other people's money by force is also against the law, unless you're in the bureaucratic class in Washington. It's not billionaires not paying their fair share. It's lying politicians like Pelosi, Schumer, Biden, Bernie that magically become filthy rich after a lifetime of public service. They all hate President Trump and Elon Musk and Doge. Why? Because they aren't playing the game. Instead, they're ruining the Beltway Party. Thank you, Elon. Thank you, President Trump. The rest of us need to stop and think about it. If you found this video educational and just enjoyed watching your tax dollars get exposed, we ask you to do us a favor. Like, subscribe, or ring the bell so you won't miss the next 5-minute facts here on LibertyNetwork.live.